Yes, I made a mistake. Yay, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Build on Open Source. My name is Derek, developer advocate at AWS, and today I'm joined by Abhishek. Hi, Abhishek.
Hey folks, hi Derek.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Hi. So, if you watch the show regularly, you're probably thinking, "Where's Rick? Where's Ricardo?" Rick isn't here this week. We're saying hi, Rick, if you're watching. We miss you. Sad face, sad face.
Yes.
Um, if you haven't seen the show before, we spend the next hour really diving deep into open source projects, and we have very cool series of guests talking about their open source project and why they scratched that itch, as we call it, and built the open source. And today we have a fantastic guest, Romaric, talking about how to seed databases. So a pet hate of mine. So stay tuned for that. We'll chat with Romaric in a bit. So Abhishek, how's your week been? What have you been up to? Tell me all about it, because I've had a crazy week.
It's been all right. It's been all right. Summer is picking up here in Delhi, so yeah, it's May time, so things are heating up a bit. Yeah, doing all right though.
Nice. Awesome. Glad the weather's getting better. I have been since the last time we broadcast and Build It Open Source, I have been to Singapore, Perth, Auckland, and I'm broadcasting today. So this different background, if you've seen the show before, this is a hotel room in Sydney. So living the developer advocate life. So Abhishek, shall we? Well. Let's start the show how we usually do. Shall we share some news of the week? Shall we jump into news of the week? Are you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's do it. News of the week. So this week, Abhishek is going to start with a few of the cool open source projects that he's come across this week, and I will do the same. So Abhishek, I think it's over to you.
All right, let me kick it off. All right, cool. So by the way, I'm doing this. I'm covering newsletter 155. So Rick did cover a project from this, but I found another one which I find really interesting, and this is related to Kafka and Kafka Connect. So I am talking about the personalized Kafka connector. So this is actually a sync Kafka connector for Amazon personalized. Now, I'm not going to deep dive. We don't have that much of time into what Kafka or Kafka Connect is. I'm sort of assuming you have a fair understanding. But in short, the sync connector can be used to sort of pipe data from Kafka to Amazon personalized, right? So let me show you this documentation page from the Amazon personalized docs page. And for those who are not aware, right, this is personalized is a managed machine learning service, and it can generate recommendations for your users based on your custom data, and you can configure all sort of things there, domains and stuff like that. So at a very high level, if you look at this, right, this is how it works. Very simple. So you import your data into personalized, and there are many ways to do it. I will dive into that. And then you configure something called recommenders or custom solutions, and then you invoke APIs to get recommendations, right? Using the personalized APIs, using the SDK or the console and stuff like that, right? Or the CLI, right? So that's
personalized. Sorry, so I jump in for people who don't know what personalized is. So personalized creates recommendations based on some history that's fed into it. Is that how it works?
Absolutely. So there are a bunch of domains you can define, so e-commerce or video streaming, and you can pump in your custom data as well. And then, once that data is in there, you configure these things called recommenders, and then you call those APIs to get recommendations, right? Just like you would with a typical e-commerce website, right? So, hey, based on your your users' actions, right, and interests and likes and dislikes and purchases, so on and so forth. So that's the kind of model which sort of personalized follows as well. But let me go into the important bit, at least for in the context of what the project I'm talking about, right? And which is importing data, right? So there are a bunch of ways to import data. And if you look at this left-hand corner here, one is the bulk way of doing things. So you can, have your CSV files, you can drop them in S3 or use tools like Data Wrangler and SageMaker and so on and so forth to do a bulk import of all that user items, events, and interactions data into personalize. So that's one way of doing it. But the other way of doing it is via the it's a non-bulk way, right? So, and that's where the connector comes in as well. Now, let me just give me a second while excuse me. So if you look at, this is the right one, right? So if you look at the non-bulk way of doing things, this is importing individual records. And if you notice here, the Kafka connector is one way of getting that done, okay? So if I were to jump right into the project, so this is the GitHub project for the Kafka connector for personalize. And if you look at it, it's pretty standard Kafka connector, to be honest with you. Nothing too out of ordinary, right? It just sort of it sort of works. And if I were to sort of scroll down standard stuff, the configuration, you can configure the connector, and I'm going to show this to you in a demo in a little bit as well.
Cool.
Right. So you have configuration properties. Credentials can be handled for you. They're the good sensible defaults, because this is obviously written in Java, so the credentials and everything are based on how the Java SDK for AWS works. So that's taken care of. And there's also this notion of specific data formats which personalize expects, right? So there is this very, very handy transformation. Now, transformation is not specific to this connector. It's a concept within Kafka Connect, wherein you can sort of change and update your data to what your end systems are expecting. So there are some out of the box transformations as well, just so that you know, because there's this format in which personalize expects your data, which is this format, but your data might end up looking like this. So there's a way to do that as well, right? Now.
Yep. So it'll save you a lot of time if you need to provide a real-time stream to personalize. It will do that translation for you in Kafka. Cool.
Right. And of course, you can write your own custom stuff as well, but this is something which is given out of the box. Pretty handy. All right. Yeah. I can jump into the demo now. So I have set everything up, obviously. So before I do that, before I actually do the demo, let me do one thing. Okay. So I'm going to do something called a job, and I'm going to start it, and I'll tell you why, because it takes a lot of time. And I will go back and explain what I'm actually doing, but let me first do that, if you don't mind. So it's going to, of course, look a little alien for folks who are not familiar with it, but it's okay. All I'm doing is create this job, and I'll tell you why, like I said. But for now, let me do it because it is going to take up time. Yes. So
you're brave doing live demos on a live show. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Let me see. Where is the name of my? This is this thing, and all I'm doing is configuring this job, which is going to pump the data and everything. And what I'm doing is, hey, I've given it the paths to the S3 bucket, where it is going to output the data, by the way. That's that. I have kickstarted this job, and it's going to take some time, like I said. And what I'm going to do here on the side is start pumping some data as well. I have a script. So this script is actually pumping data into a Kafka cluster, which I have running on my local machine right here. So this is Zookeeper and Kafka, the usual stuff. And what you see here on the third console, and I'm going to actually restart this. So this is actually the Kafka Connect connector itself. And obviously, like I said, I mean, you may not understand everything here because I've set it up already. So I already have the personalized Kafka connector installed, and I can quickly show that to you here real quick. If I were to do a curl, so what I'm doing is essentially curling the Kafka Connect REST endpoint to show you this connector, which I've already configured. And as you can see, this is in an up and running state. Okay.
Cool. So if anybody has any questions about what Abhishek is showing you, chat is your friend, people. If please ask anything in the chat. Okay, sorry, Abhishek. Keep going.
No, live questions with live demo, right? But nothing
exactly.
can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong. All right. So let me keep going in the interest of time. So I was going to talk about the configuration real quick. So every Kafka connector has a configuration, right? If you're familiar with it. So in this case, we are specifying this class. This is the Java class which actually implements the connector. I have already installed the connector and placed this in the class path for Kafka Connect. So it's ready for it to access. This is my region where my personalized service and APIs are running. And this is the type of data within personalized. So there's users, there's items, there's events. I am keeping things very simple. I'm just going to work with one set of
just the users.
items. just the users for this time.
Yeah.
And this is my ARN for the data set which I created. I'm going to go back to the personalized console and show that to you. And this is the name of the Kafka topic where I am actually pumping in all this data, just like I showed you in a second, right? So this is all this data is getting pumped into this user topic, and Kafka, the connector is pumping this into personalize as we speak, right?
Yep.
And that's it in terms of the configuration. Now let me go back to personalize and quickly walk you through what I already have. Now, to be honest with you, I am not an expert on personalize. Even I learned it a while back, but I'm going to assume that you understand some of it as well. So I have this a dataset group which I have already created. I have a data set within this group, the dataset group, and it's called user dataset. And if I were to open that, and if you notice, there is a schema which is associated with this user's dataset. And this just happens to be, I've just configured it to be very, very simple. So it has a user ID and an age, which is an integer, and it's optional, right? But you can, of course, specify your own schema. And yeah, sorry, wait, was there a question?
Add more fields if you see fit. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. So other
like,
types,
left-footed, right-footed, favorite color. Yeah.
Favorite show. Is it The Walking Dead? Dead? I don't know. All right. That's that. So that's one thing I want to show you. And there's another important thing. If you remember, I had set up this job and it's active now. I'm going to show it. But if I were to open this job, so every job actually needs to interact with the S3 bucket, right? So in this case, I've created this bucket already, and you need to have proper IAM roles and permissions in order to do that. So I have this IAM role ready here. So if you see it, you have to give it access to personalize, as well as for S3, as you would assume, because what this job is doing is ultimately I'm going to verify the end-to-end connector through this job, because what I'm doing is pumping out data, whatever data is going into personalize from the connector, I'm pumping this out and just exporting it using this job, this offline batch job. Okay. Now, let's go back to the S3 bucket and see if we have some data there, right? So this is the bucket as I had configured. So if I were to just go through all the folders, so this is the name of my dataset group, and that's how it is actually structured. This is the name of my dataset itself, and in there I have output folders corresponding to each job execution, which is pretty handy and clear, right? So job 11 is what I just ran, 12th of May. And let me see. So I have some data which is about 3.2 KB, and So let me just download this real quick and just give me a second here.
This is where we test your internet to see if it can stream and download from S3.
I didn't want that. Just give me a sec. While I open this. Open with So let me pull this up real quick. I apologize. So this is the data which we actually, this is the one. This is the older one actually. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, so this is random data, of course, which is being pumped in right here, if you see below, right, from this script which I have. I can show you the script as well. Nothing very this thing, right? At the end of the day, what it is doing is it's sending producing data to Kafka. Simple as that, right? So basically, I just have the user ID and the age here, so that's what it is outputting. But of course, you could do much richer things like if I were to go back and show the data set, right? So you can configure. So this is, if I were to create a new data set, for example, I can have how are users actually interacting with your items. So you can actually have configure your items in there, and then your interactions and events and so on and so forth. So very simple sort of way to show this off. That's pretty much I had in terms of the demo, to be honest with you.
It's quite a powerful feature. We can in real time actually mutate that data stream. And push it to personalize. And
exactly. And this is a very common use case. Because Kafka acts as this front end, sort of this front end for every sort of high velocity and high volume data, right? So you are pushing in your user, your items, your interactions, pumping into Kafka and pushing this into personalize, and then using that for your recommendations.
Cool.
So
your live demo worked,
Yeah, it worked.
Chalk one up to the demo gods. And
absolutely.
Cool.
Let me know. I can talk about other stuff, but I'll let you take the call, Derek.
Okay, well, before that's I don't want to tempt the demo gods too much, too much, Abhishek. But that thanks for running that. That was a cool demo. I think, what I wanted to talk about was two things that I became aware of today. And very, very relevant to security in the cloud, and security postures. So I don't know if you knew, but 2 days ago we released two open source projects that would help with security and security posture. So I'm going to go if I share my screen, which I now realize that I didn't do when we warmed up. This is Snap Change, and come on, Derek. Again, this is live, folks. Yes. So there's two new open source projects that we open sourced recently. The first one is called Cedar Policy. So these are brand new, open source in the last 2 days. So what Cedar is, it's a way of defining your security policies, and also not only how you define them, but how you evaluate them. So you can actually, when you're building an application, you can express, what parts of the application can access what. So fine-grained access control inside your application. And so it's actually a standard to do that. So we can then reuse that standard wherever we want. And it's quite an excellent piece of documentation as well. I was reading through it earlier in my spare time, and it's a great. It's
when you are not in
exactly. So we have a number of services that released at the read event, so verified access that uses these policies to make sure that your application is allowed to do what it wants. So can it reach an S3 bucket? Can it reach an API? That's sort of stuff that you need to control, because developers, we're lazy people, and we don't necessarily build that into an application. So this makes it a lot easier to do that. So that's Cedar. It's well worth checking out. I'll put a link in the chat.
Is this written in Rust as well? I see Rust and Java as the top languages of this org. Is Cedar in Rust?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's written in Rust, but certainly it seems like parts of it are written in Rust, which I didn't actually realize that when I was first looking at it. However, it's funny you should mention Rust, Abhishek. The second project that I wanted to show, again, it was released at the same time as Cedar because it's very similar, but the security focused, and this is definitely written in Rust. It's called Snap Change. So Snap Change is a way of doing fuzzy testing on an application. So fuzzy testing is ways to actually test the memory or the VM that the application is running on. So this is also very cool that we open sourced this. And again, it gives you a lot of tutorials. So it shows you how to set it up, and then goes into a bit more depth. So if you're a Rust programmer, which I'm a very poor Rust programmer, then you'll understand.
Do you have 10 years of Rust experience already?
Oh, okay. You're a 10x Rust programmer. Oh, nice. Well done. Yep. So if you actually are a Rust programmer, you'll understand this and struct type and how to set it up, and of course cargo run, which my Rust programmer friends like yourself tell me is the thing to do to run applications. So they're the two I wanted to highlight this week. I think basically because I haven't had any time to build a demo, but B, they're very relevant and new, like 2 days old. Yeah. So I thought, let's get some really new open source projects on the Building Open Source show this week. Good. So they're the two I am highlighting, and I'll stick the links in the chat for everybody to have a look.
So quick question on the last one, if you don't mind, the Snap Change. So is this an application level thing? Because it seemed like it's more of an infrastructure thing.
It's a VM level, so it'll
not like the Cedar, right?
No, so the first one, Cedar, is more application policies. Fuzzy testing is definitely what the application is running on, and checking
on the platform side of things, perhaps. Yeah, the platform engineer.
So you're not injecting any dodgy code or instructions into the VM. So it's pretty cool. So two nice little projects. So while I'm working out how to inject the links, it's time, I think, to move to our next section. We will introduce our guest. So I'm for people watching, I'm frantically trying to find a transition to the guest. So I'll find it, and then you should see this. And I've broken it. Oh no. There we go. Yeah, Romaric.
So, I'm here. Good transition. A perfect transition ever.
Thank you. It was done with my touchpad. I forgot my mouse. I used to bring with me, and that was we'll call that a touchpad transition. Welcome, Romaric. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, and thank you, Tarek. Hey, Abhishek. It's good to be here, and thanks. Yeah. And I see that there's a lot of a Rust project over there. It's great. Yeah. Like it's a quite popular language, right?
Yeah, I feel a theme of the show developing. So absolutely. So Romaric, do you want to, for those who do not know who you are, would you like to do an introduction?
Yeah, of course. I'm Romaric, so CEO and co-founder of Qovery. So it's a company, the company that is behind Replibyte, which is the project that I'm going to talk about, fully open source. But basically, I'm a tech guy, like used to work in financial industry, managing infrastructure for more than 10 years. And now I'm running this company, which is like a Qovery. That's a simplified experience on top of AWS, just to help like developers to deploy their application in a cloud in a very seamless way. And we have built this project like Replibyte just to make sure that people that are like creating dev data set from production data can do it like in a very efficient way. So and I'm not supposed to be like involved into like development. I'm CEO, but I still enjoy doing that. So Replibyte is a project that I'm running on my free time. Okay. What? And it's still like involved in some technical stuff. I try just to keep my hand into that. It's quite important. And happy to be here, guys.
Nice. I must say, Romaric, Qovery is one of the killer names I've come across, because when I read it, I was like, Qovery. Yeah, I like how you spelt it. And what you describe, Replibyte is, and we said this before we came on air, is like the problem of seeding database with production data is like one of the pet hates of developers everywhere. You know, when you're building a project, you're trying to test it, and all you've got is this crappy test data, usually Monsieur Smith or
exactly.
Some really random names in data. Yeah.
John Doe.
John Doe, Foobar. So that's typically the data that you get. So everybody wants that production data. So I'm really excited to see this in action, Romaric. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's true that it's like very challenging. It's something that all developers, all people like experience. Hey guys, can you just like get fresh data from the production? And just at the end of the day, what we have seen, so from our experience at Qovery, is that people that just connect to the production database because it's such a pain just to get like a fresh dump that is representing like the production data that just like
absolutely. For developers out there, do not connect to your production database. You will have a very, very bad day. To say no to prod. Cool. So where are we going? Yes, let's bring up your slides here, Mark. Yes, I've done that one. Awesome.
Yeah, and we already like in some way introduced like the subject, so which is good. The idea of like this presentation is just not like getting into all the details of. I want to jump like right away into the live demo, so I will just cover like a few aspects of that, explaining the reasons and like the concept and why, like the genius behind reply bytes, because that's something that is quite important. But just before getting into that, like quickly, so I introduce myself. Like I'm a tech guy, I'm CEO, I'm still involved in some stuff, practicing Rust. I really do love like this language, like Python, Kotlin, like so many languages. You know, you learn one and then you learn like 10. It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I've been having a debate. I don't know if Abhishek, you have the same debate around Python and the lack of types and the how frightened that makes me to find runtime errors.
Yeah, can't even think about it.
Yeah, and I'm 34. I'm not like 50, even if I now have no hairs. Okay, so Derek, don't laugh at that. I can.
I'm 100, Romaric. So yeah.
So still young, it's good. Yeah, and today I want to just like cover quickly so reply byte, what's reply byte, and how it works. I think it's quite good and understand how things work, because the way that I've designed and we've designed with the community this tool is like made in a very efficient way. Very powerful, because it's just like a single binary. You don't need servers, like crazy configurations, because at the end of the day, when you start like to have those projects that you have to set up and put like a lot of things around, then it's just like a complete mess to maintain over time. That's something that I wanted to avoid from scratch. So that's why also we'll cover the limitation of that tool. It doesn't fit for all the type of workload, but it's made like in an efficient way, and that's why we have used Rust. So yeah, and obviously we'll get into a live demo, so finger crossed that it works.
One has worked, so
Yes.
no,
So,
it will work.
so the probability has reduced because we've already had one perfect live demo.
Don't say that. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah, it will work. I tried just before, but I hope it will work again. Yeah. So reply byte, like quickly accessible from GitHub. Okay, it's fully open source. There is no vendor trick. We don't try to get you into Qovery like for some reason. You can just like use just a reply byte on your own. It works like everywhere. We have like users from different kinds of company with different type of technical stack. And yes, it's a tool to seed your development database from your production data, while keeping like the sensitive information safe, which is very, very important and the most challenging part of, because otherwise you can just dump your production data, import it into your dev environment, but I think it's not very good.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. So so this is probably why tools like this are very few and far between, because the complexity of actually either hiding or mutating the sensitive data is quite a large complexity. So I'm really interested to see how you did that.
Yeah, and there is no AI, no GPT, no stuff like that. Okay, it's like a quite old way of declaring that. We'll cover all of that, but probably we'll do things like about adding a GPT at some point. Okay, so yeah, as you explained, Derek, like don't connect to your production like environment. It's not good. Especially when you're like manipulating like P2I, so personal identifiable informations. Obviously, there's some regulation over there, especially if you're working in like a specific company, so you can't get access to that, even if we are seeing from our experience that people get access still to those informations, because they need at some point like just running tests that are like really looking to what they get in production. Okay, so the risk here obviously is to just like leak those information, which is not good, obviously for your business, but also for your personal health.
Yep, the blood pressure does go up somewhat. Yep.
Yeah. And this is where we see like companies and people's making, and this is also the reason why they get to reply byte at some point. So, that's exactly the tool that we were looking for, because yes, they are building seed script. The problem is that you're making once, so it's good. It's good. It's working well because you have like the proper definition of your stack at the time that you're making the seed script, but like maintaining that over time is quite time like consuming, difficult. all of that. And obviously, so the most important also is that the data that you are creating, so generating, they are not like they don't look like the ones that you have in production, which is quite difficult just to get into the different corner case that you face in production. So that's what we wanted to solve with RepliByte, basically.
Yeah.
So just saving time, making the thing safe, quite efficient. So that's the reason behind.
Yeah. I've actually this has happened to me a few times where I've worked on systems, and obviously the system's in production, and a new feature has been released. So somebody's written seed scripts for the original system.
Yeah.
Then new feature adds a couple of new fields. Then the seed scripts can't keep up, and so they put null in the database, or just really nothing in the data, and then everything breaks. Because we never test them. So that this happens all the time. So
and then you have to call and then you have to call the ones that is maintaining this script, because you always have like someone that is cool enough just to maintain that. And it's a mess. So this is where like comes like RepliByte. So the idea is that how we make sure that you always get like a fresh data seed dump from your production, like in a simple and efficient way. So it's a tool that you just install. So it's like a single binary that you can run, connect to your database. It can even take like an existing dump if you have like an existing dump from your production database. So you have the choice, and we'll get that through the demo. And then from that, you can declare, you have a definition, like a file definition configuration file that you declare, where you put like those elements and also like the schema and what you want to hide. So you can hide those sensitive data and then inject them into like a script, into a dump, a direct dump, or a direct database. Okay, we'll cover that. It's a bit more like a complex than just that. Just let me explain. It's much more powerful than what I've described, actually, because we have the concept of a data store. I will explain, but basically we can store the dump that we are creating into like a temporary device. This device is what we call a data store. It could be like a S3 bucket, local disk. It could be like anything. I will cover that just after, but why we have created like RepliByte is in the concept of Qovery, and even like in different, even if you are not using Qovery, probably like most of companies, they have like a production, development, staging, development environments. And with Qovery, we have the concept of like a preview environments and dynamic environments. You can spin up new environments that looks like production in just no time, like in just a few clicks. The problem here is that when you talk about production environments, production-like environments, you might want to have also the data that looks like production, you see? So that's one of the main reasons also why we created RepliByte, because every single time that we had like a new user, new customers like using that features, he was asking like, hey guys, I have those seed scripts that I have to maintain, and I want to use like a Qovery for the preview environments. I don't feel that those seed scripts are going to work the way that I want. So do you have like something to make sure that I can at least copy like the data from my productions to my preview environments? And what they wanted at the beginning is just, that's why when you're building a product, you have to really listen to your customers. It's really important, but don't take it for granted when they say and ask for something, because they just wanted to copy their production data to like their development environment, which is not good. So this is where you can just add RepliByte. So same if you're using something that is completely outside.
Yes. You always have to understand what the customer really wants. I think that's key. One question I have for you, Romaric, is another issue that I've come across when these sort of things happen is the size of the production database, because usually the production database is quite large, and dev is a smaller cut down of that. So how do you handle that?
That's a very good point, and that's also one of the feature and quite advanced feature of RepliByte. Just let me explain that. It's what we call like subsetting. It's exactly what we do provide, like database subsetting. So you can just take like a short chunk of the database. So we have like what we call a subset strategy that you can define in your configuration file. I will get you there. But basically, you can just take like a scale down like your production database with like a very small size of it, which is like faster to inject again into your development environment, and quite good. It's a big challenging part from Replibyte because what does that mean? It means that I had to just like conceive a system that is able to also keep the relations between the data.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it means that you have to understand the data that you are like parsing, like in much more like details, like a precise way than just like hiding the sensitive information. You have to really understand the structure and just keep like the coherence between like the data, the different tables. So that's one of the most challenging one. And that's something that is working pretty well, even if there is like some limitations, but we'll talk about all of that just after.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's a very good.
Quick question, Romaric, if you don't mind. So, and perhaps you're going to talk about it. But what are you using? Are you using change data capture for? Because I see Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB. Is that what you're using, or is this something the write ahead logs, or things like that? What are you using to capture those?
Actually, it's a dump. Like you can run. Yeah, it's a dump. So we are not doing like those changes in a live.
The real time changes is something which you're not like. This is not covering it. Okay.
No. It's quite. That's something that I was thinking about at the beginning, but that's something that is also quite changing and not really like solving this issue. You just need to import like a dump at some point, and yes, we're working with those dump directly. Yeah.
Got it.
It's good. Good question. But yes, exactly. Replibyte supports like multiple databases. Actually, if you want to add like other databases, it's quite simple. You have like an interface system that you can implement, and then from that, you can just like support like any kind of database. So PostgreSQL, MongoDB are supported, and thanks to the community, by the way, just to create like those connectors like MySQL and MongoDB. And one main aspect, as I mentioned, is like the fact that Replibyte is daemonless. There is no server, nothing. It's really like a standalone binary that you install, brew install on Mac, for instance, or apt install for Linux, just to install Replibyte. Then from that, you're ready to go. You provide like a configuration file, and it's all good. Okay.
Yep. So that really makes scaling easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And just like Wiki, obviously we provide like some stuff just to make the things quite secure. We compress like the data just to save like some space, especially when you generate like dump. It's just text file basically, so you can compress that pretty well. And we provide like encryption, decryptions like on the fly. That's quite important part, and I will just explain how it works after.
Yep.
Yeah. Before getting into the demo. So how it looks like when you use Replibyte for like dumping a database. So I told you there is like three resources that you have to define actually with Replibyte. You have the source database, so it could be like a dump or the database itself directly. You have the destination, okay, so where you want to restore that dump. And you have what we call a data store. Okay, it's a temporary device that you are going to use just to save like the dump, because when we are building the dump, we need to save it like somewhere. And this is quite powerful because something, if we go back to the slides just before here, I mentioned something like the fact that dynamic environments in the real world, environments, the production environment, the development environment, they are not connected to each other. Otherwise it's a very bad practice.
Very bad. And somebody will come and tap you on the shoulder and have words.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So this is something that Replibyte also know how to solve, because the way that we have built this tool is that you can connect to like a remote data source, so a S3 bucket. So let's say you are doing the processing in place on your production. So you are creating this dump. You can just add Replibyte as a single binary. There is no outside connections. Doing the processing in place, like for the dump, and then pushing that dump that is a safe with no sensitive information into a S3 bucket. Then from that S3 bucket, you can restore the dump for your development environment. So you see, it's very safe. And something that we did great is that actually into this data store, we put just a simple manifest file that is declaring like the structure of the dumps that have been done. Then from that, we can just avoid using a server. We just store like a simple JSON file that is just giving the reference of all the different dumps. I will show you how it works, because when you type a command like to list all the dump, actually you have the feeling that you are connecting to a server that is like giving you through an API like those elements. No, actually it's not the case. You are connecting to the data store that you have declared with the credential, and you are reading that file, and then you can show like the different elements that have been stored.
Yeah, cool. So the questions that spring to mind, and these would be asked if I wanted to run a script to troll the data of a production database, is security. So how does RippleByte connect into the source database? Can it run on the machine of the source database? Can it connect over a remote JDBC connection? You know, how does that work, and how can you lock that down?
Yeah, to the database, it's just like a pure basic SQL connection. So under the hood, so RippleByte is using like the dump tool, the official dump tool that you provide. So it's just shelling out like a command. For instance, for Postgre, it's a pg dump that is using. So we just connect to like the classic connection system protocol for the database that you choose. Okay, but you can also provide, so you know that it's not very also, probably your IT team will just like get in your back and say, hey, what are you doing just connecting to the production database? You can use directly like a dump that you provide as well. So if you have like a dump from your production data, then you can use directly that one.
Yeah, so you could go and request a dump from the DBAs if you know them nicely and say, yes.
Yeah, or what they can do, so what we are seeing is that they can use RippleByte directly, set up RippleByte into like the production environment. So they are the only ones that they have access. So you limit just the exposure. So they just like set up the tools, and then this tool is making the dump from like the production environment for the development team, you see? So the development team still, again, they don't have access to the production data. That's the way you can just like separate the concern.
Yeah, and that's where the single binary concept comes in so handy, right? So you can convince people much more easily as compared to spinning up this entire fleet of servers and whatnot.
Absolutely. There is no, and all the code is open source, and there is no remote connections, nothing. That's very important. Then just to make sure that your production environment, there is no leak possible, since the tool is like by itself able to just be on its own. Yeah.
Cool.
So just like quickly, so how it works, so RippleByte read the configuration file, then dump the data from the source database. Okay, so it could be your production database. Then you have a few options, actually. So subsetting is an option, okay, to create the dump. You can transform like a sensitive data. So it's an option as well. You can just like dump all your production data, but it's not obviously good. And you can compress on the fly and encrypt the data on the fly, okay? And then from that, they are uploaded on the S3 bucket on any data store, okay? The way that we process the data, that's why we are using Rust, is that we really chunk the data. It's a byte by byte that we are processing the data on the fly just to try to keep the memory footprint quite low. That's very important since we can manipulate, but it also takes like sometimes. That's why large databases, since you can't scale like this binary, but it can take us sometimes. So it's really dependent on the size of the database and the operation that you're making on that. Yeah,
absolutely. So for those of us who just joined us, it's built on open source, and we are going through RippleByte with Romaric on how to build a dev database from production and getting rid of the sensitive data while we're at it. I'm sure some people have questions, so please pop your questions in the chat as well for Romaric. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And how it works like on the restore part. So I told you something that we are making just here is that we are writing this manifest file so into the data store that you have defined. Then when you want to restore and you type RippleByte restore a list, dump a list, you can get a list of all the dumps that are available, and then you can restore the ones that you want. Okay, so you can do like a restore lattice, for instance, And then from that, so if you have the options of the data that has been encrypted, then we'll decrypt that. We will uncompose the data if it's the case, and then we restore the dump. So, and it's quite convenient. We are really focused on the developer experience, because when even Replibyte is something that works well on your local machine. Let's say you're a developer, you want to get access to a dump from the production, okay, with like all the sensitive information that are like hidden, and you want to make some tests on your local machine, you can type like some commands, dump, restore, latest, and local. And then Replibyte will spin up a Postgres, for instance, if you're using Postgres, a Postgres container, and will inject the data directly into that local Postgres container. You see? So it's quite convenient.
I love this.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Spin up a container on the fly too. Okay.
Show me, Replibyte. That's enough talk. Let's get some action.
Yeah, sorry, I've talked too much. It's like it's super. I'm tired as well.
Let's
we've asked a lot of questions because I'm pretty excited, and Abhishek's excited, and we've asked lots of questions, and we've slowed you down. Sorry, Romaric.
Yeah, I've just shared my screen. Can you share it? Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
I will try just to make it quite big, so it's not enough. Let me. Okay, and let me reduce the size of that. Yes, okay, perfect.
This is good.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so Replibyte, easy brew install or whatever you want to install Replibyte. So you have all the sources on our website, and then from that you can start using the tool. Okay, so I have already obviously a configuration file. So it's a Qovery Replibyte GCP, because I was using a GCP for that test. Yep. And basically, so you can use like anything that is, so it's just for the data store actually that I'm using GCP. So everything that is S2E compatible, wire protocol compatible works well. Okay, and as I explained, you can create this YAML file and just declare 3 elements, like the source, okay, that we have here, the data store, and the destination, basically. Super simple, okay?
Yep.
This is something that is working. I've even like commented some elements like the transformation part and other elements, but I will just like uncomment that after. And how it works is super simple. So from that, you can do Replibyte, dump a list, for instance. So you have multiple commands. You can show the helper for that. If you type a Replibyte dump list, you will get a list of all the dumps that are available. You see? Boom.
Yep, nice.
I have, yes. So I'm connecting to my remote bucket, and actually what you're seeing here, there is, again, no servers. Okay, it's really like we are reading the file from that bucket. So we have this manifest file, and then from that we can see all the different dumps that we have. Okay, so super simple. So now let's say that we want to, I don't know, create a dump. So from our source database that we have declared, we can do just like dump create. Okay, so dump create, and then we have like a few options that we can specify if we want to like set them. Then we'll take the source from this YAML file, and then we make like the dump that we need. Okay, perfect. Let's say now I told you that you can do something. It's like just taking a dump, an existing dump, a file, and you want to create a dump, a development dump from that.
Obvious.
You can, you can directly pipe actually. So we have an option -e that you can specify that is going to take the input like from the cat that you're making. So here, if I want to create a dump directly, you see, so I have a dump from my production database. I can specify the type. So the Postgres, it's like a Postgres dump, and then just execute that. We'll see that is going to do all the processing and uploading the chunks.
Does it default to Postgres, or like do you have to explicitly specify?
You have to explicitly specify that, because the dump actually, we don't know if it's Postgres or anything else. There is no header. We are not reading anything from that file just before, so you have to declare.
Makes sense. Yeah, if it's in a specific dialect.
We could like read the header of the file, or just like try to guess what's
why do all that? Just take a little help from the user, please.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, so here what you're seeing is that live, so Replibyte is processing the data and also uploading the data on my remote like data store. You see,
Okay.
so I can stop that actually, so it will not finish. Okay. And
No,
what
I've
I
got a
can
quick question from Balzor, who has noted that we did mention GCP in the AWS channel, but as I said, we love everybody here. His question is, would you recommend the RepLBot be used to manage and restore real production data? So I think what he's saying is production to production.
Basically, it will work like the same way. Actually, we bypass then the transformation part, so it will be quite fast, and it will just use like the basic command from your production from the database that you're using. So it will work well. That's something that I've seen. To be honest, I was like,
yeah, really, wow,
surprised. I was surprised just to see that people they were using RepliByte just to do like the dump and the restoration, but it's not like it's quite interesting because they get out of the box everything that they need, the compression, the encryption. They can store that into like a remote data store, so it makes sense in some way. Yeah, it makes sense.
Thanks, Balzar, for the question.
Yeah,
anyway.
Thank you. And yeah, so I've created like a dump. I've just like stopped the dump just to show you. If we list again, then we'll see that actually our dump is here. So 2 minutes ago it has been created. So it's compressed, it's not encrypted, and it's like more than 100 megabytes. So you see. So there's some so there is some improvement here. You can see that right from this screenshot, which is I've just like stopped the dump and it's still like in the list. So probably we need to just flag that dump that is not completed. That's something that we need to improve. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some room for improvement. But what you can do then from that, you can do just basically dump restore now. So let's say you have this dump, you have run this command into your production environment, and then you have your developer that has like the same YAML file. Obviously, it doesn't have like the credential of the production, so it's going to connect to the remote data store, okay, because he has like some read access, so no write access again. So you have really to just make the things the right way. And then from that, if it's the case, you can just run the command dump restore. You can even restore that locally speaking, okay? So we can say like it's this one, and what I'm gonna do is just picking that version, okay, and restore that one, okay? So I can restore that one, and what will happen is that RepliByte will basically spin up now a container on my local machine and just load the dump, so I can test it locally. If I want to restore that into my remote database, again, I can just remove the restore local. I just say remote, restore remote, and then from that, we'll just restore the dump.
We have Postgres running already.
Yeah, of course. I have so many. So yes, I have so many projects that are like running. So probably I will kill that one.
The infamous bind error. What's all your processes? Kill them all.
Yeah, kill them all. I will not kill that one. Actually, I'm working on another project, so yeah. But yeah, that's the way it works. So RepliByte, you have like a couple of other commands that you can see. It's quite easy. It's accessible on GitHub. All of that. If you are interested, just jump into it and give a shot. And just quickly, I want just to.
No problem. I'm just going to put the GitHub link up. Yeah, there you go. And so, what about things that you'd like to do when you have more time, if you ever have time, or ask the community to help you with?
That's a very good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good transition for like this part. Yeah, there's some stuff that needs to be done with RepliByte, and we are actively looking for contributors. So just feel free to come. It's a good way also to get into Rust, even if you're not familiar. We are quite friendly to help you to get into it. And yes, improving the performance is one of them. It's quite important just because on large database, then you have like some slowness. It takes time. It's just a single binary, so it's really dependent on the local machine where you're running RepliByte. But there is some optimizations that we can make, so just to make it like faster. Obviously, also the subsetting part. It's only available on Postgres today. It's a very difficult part, to be honest. It's a very challenging one. So the ones that is like quite proficient in Rust and wants to get into that one, trust me, I spend weekends like just trying to figure out what's going on, because behind the scene you have just to build like a kind of SQL engine, just interpret and get into like the data structure of your database and just follow the different links and make sure that the subset is consistent. So the database, the data at the end is quite consistent. So supporting Mongo and MySQL is one of them. Auto-detect sensitive fields, that could be great, but
wow, that would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Because today is something that I didn't show. Actually, I didn't show that part. But you have to declare like the sensitive data. So if you have like a schema that has changed and you have a new sensitive data, then it can be like an issue. So that's something that we can prevent by just storing the schema on one part and detecting those changes. And then from that, we can just try also to hide like those sensitive feeds. Okay. And what we want obviously also is that at some point, once we have something that is like ready to be integrated and stable enough with Replibyte, then we'll integrate that tool into Qovery. And I hope to see like any, even our competitors like integrating Replibyte.
Nice. That's cool. So anybody, so in a nutshell, if you're a Rust developer out there or want to learn Rust, this is a great, love that slide. This is a great project that you can support and learn Rust as you're going. And if you're a database guru on MongoDB, also.
Yeah.
I wish there was Redis support here, so that would be nice. Yeah.
And thanks again to our contributors. We had like a couple of contributors that did like a really good job, especially the ones that managed like MongoDB. MongoDB was like supporting like reading the dump and creating like a dev dump from a MongoDB dump is super challenging because you have like a CRC code, you have like a check code at the end, so you have to regenerate like the CRC, change it into like the dump itself, and it's quite challenging. It's something that is not well documented from like the open source project, and it did like a great job on that part. Yeah.
Cool.
So
well,
thank you guys. It was great.
And awesome. That was an awesome presentation, Romaric. Really nicely done, and you also hit time. Well done, sir. We have about 2 minutes left, and so Rick isn't here, but every episode he asks our guests the same question. So for posterity, I'm going to ask you what Rick would ask you. So, Romaric, and he has a board that has imagine a board here with some everybody's faces who've appeared on the previous episodes, and he asks you, so Romaric, if you have pizza, would you order pineapple on your pizza or not pineapple on your pizza? What would you prefer?
Pineapple.
And he would take your little avatar and he would stick it on the pineapple side, which is the most heavily populated side. So we are a pineapple person. Congratulations. Awesome. That was great. Abhishek, any last comments or anything?
Yeah, I think I had one quick question. Did you try other languages as well? Like why Rust? Perhaps I know performance and memory constraints, but did you try anything else as well? I'm curious about that.
No, Rust is good for that. Actually, sometimes that it's a very good question because this is the perfect project like to pick Rust. Actually, it's quite hard just to pick Rust most of the time because when you're looking like most of the applications, they don't really need to have like performance. They don't have performance issues and stuff. Yeah, it's just like code application most of the time. And you are just exposing like an API that is doing just dumb stuff, and you have like those companies that are picking. Yeah, and they try to find a way just to use Rust. It's like the perfect like project for Rust actually because you have like those performance issues, and it's also a good way to attract people to get into Rust because it's simple enough. It's a single binary. And yeah, we really needed to have like those performances, but I didn't try like any other, to be honest, language for that project, because I really wanted to make it in Rust to attract people and also to
Cool. So we can talk about this forever. Honestly, it's a great project, Romaric. Well done. Awesome, an awesome demo. So thanks, Romaric. Thanks, Abhishek, and thanks everybody for watching Build on Open Source. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye now.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.